It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to day 2 of Transform 2018. I'm really excited. We have an amazing, amazing agenda today. We captured some photos last night from the reception on the roof. Looks like everybody had a fantastic time. I did get a call early this morning from the building management people. And you know, I'm always wondering when you hold a conference like this, what's that call going to be? And they said that we left something on the roof. So naturally, we had to go up and pick that something up. And it looks like somebody had a really, really good time at the event. A couple housekeeping items here before I introduce our first speaker today. Between 11 and 11:45, we're going to have some deep dive breakout sessions. One of those sessions is on the 6th floor. The event staff will help you will guide you down to that. But make sure you leave yourself a couple minutes to get there because we want to start these sessions on time. So without further delay, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Kurt Cavano. Kurt is the president and founder of GT Nexus. Kurt will be providing us some insights on how organizations can interrupt, disrupt, scale, and also at the same time keep their customers happy. So please join me in welcoming Kurt to the stage.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks. So I'm not going to talk about any of that. I've decided I'm going to talk just about technology. And so as a founder, as a guy who started a company, and I spend almost all of my time thinking about technology. And the reason is, it's not the truck that's coming at you down the highway straight at your face that hits you. It's always the one coming from the side that runs into you. And the reason is, technology is changing so quickly. And I'm going to talk you through some thinking about where technology is going. And this poll is really annoying. Jesus. How many of you in the room have heard of something called Moore's Law? Come on, raise your hand. I want to get it up there. Okay. So at least half of you have heard of Moore's Law. Well, Gordon Moore was the founder of Intel. Really smart guy, really rich guy. And he came up with this concept that said that technology, the power of a chip, is going to double, and depending on who you talk to, every 12 months, 18 months, or every 24 months, it doesn't matter. It's going to double every year or so. And this is the original graph that he drew in the original paper he wrote. And that's a log scale. Now, how many of you from your high school math remember what logs are? Raise your hand. Fewer than know this, okay? A few of you, okay? Well, you know on a log scale, it's not a linear scale. It's actually doubling every increment. The increment is a doubling, or a 10x actually in this case. This is what it looks when you plot that on a regular graph. And it's showing the power of how technology is changing. And this is between 1958 and 1975. I'm embarrassed to admit that 1975 was when I started my first programming gig. So that was a long time ago. But as you can see, the power of the microchip was going up tremendously. But the reality is, when you plot it over even a longer period of time, and this is going out even further, this is till 2010, right here, you can see that that part of this graph that looked like it was going up is almost relatively flat compared to what's happening now. And this is, this period right in here, remember the 8086 chip, and then the 286 and the 386 and the 486 and the Pentium? We had to get that Pentium, man. That computer was going to run really fast. Okay? Remember those days? It's amazing when you kind of look back at it and think about, you know, that was really powerful back then. But the reality is, that wasn't powerful at all. Because when you take a look at what's happening now, this bottom graph is that 8086 graph line that was from the previous graph, which was going up really steep. compared with what's actually happening with another kind of chip called a GPU. Now, I know this is getting really technical. I know this is a logistics conference. I know this is early morning, but this is really important. The GPU is a graphical processing unit. A graphical processing unit was designed to be able to print things faster or render graphics faster. And that GPU was created by a company called NVIDIA. And if you have that stock in your IRA, you shouldn't be here right now because it's rocketed faster than the graph. The GPU was designed to do something different. The 8086 chip was designed, that Intel chip or the AMD chip that's in all of our PCs, our laptops, was designed to do a lot of things at the same time. Open Excel, open Word, do your email, open another Excel, machine crashes. That's what it was designed to do. The GPU was designed to do a little bit of things, but put a whole bunch of them together and do them in parallel, and you can move a real lot of data really fast. And as you can see, even that graph, I don't have a laser here, but that graph that seemed steep before, which is the white line on the bottom, when you compare it to the GPU, it's nothing with the power. We're talking about 8,000 gigaflops, which is 8,000 billion transactions a second, is what that chip can do. The power of that is unbelievable. So if you stand at the top of this, imagine standing at the top of this graph and looking down 10 or 15 years, you can understand how Apple was able to create this phone that was so powerful, that's more powerful than any of the computers that we had just 5 years ago. Because this technology has gotten so powerful so fast. But what's really the crazy thing about the GPU is while it was designed for rendering graphics, which is mainly what they use in gaming, it's also really good for two other things. One of them is crypto mining, Bitcoin. They use these GPU boards to actually do crypto mining, where you're creating the keys, the unique keys, so that you can lock something up in a blockchain, which don't ask me about blockchain. Everybody says, oh, this is blockchain? It's good at that, but it's also really good at something else, and that's AI. This chip unleashed the whole AI revolution, because not only can it render graphics fast, not only can it mine cryptocurrency really fast, it can do what's called the black box learning that's necessary to teach a machine to learn to do AI. And so this chip, or this set of chips, the GPU, is going to increase in power in the next 18 months more than all of the growth it's had in the prior 15 years. So think about that. We're going to see in the next 18 months more growth in power than happened looking backwards since all of us started our jobs. That transition, that change in power is going to enable a whole new set of things that we can't even think about how it's going to change the way we do everything. And the biggest one, unless you guys become crypto miners or graphics guys and gals, the biggest thing is AI. It's going to empower AI to be so much more powerful than it already is today. And when I talk about AI, what am I talking about? Not a blank screen. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay, come on, help me back there. I love this. This is technology. There's no GPU in that computer, I can tell you. That's an Intel computer back there. Well, while he figures out how to get this thing displayed, what I was going to show you, I was going to show you, is something else that's happening at the same time, courtesy of our government. There is so much cash around that's never been here before. And this graph and the next graph are private equity and venture capital. And when you actually go look at how much they have, and this is the VCs, and the next screen, yes, it worked, is private equity. When you combine them together, between private equity and venture capital, there is over $1 trillion, $1 trillion, that's a really big number, of what's called dry powder. And what is dry powder? Dry powder, which is money that's been committed to be invested that's looking for a home. $1 trillion. Now, most of us, at least I, have a hard time understanding what $1 trillion is, but you put this in perspective. You could give 10,000 people, or startups, or companies, $100 million. That's what $1 trillion is. Think about that. 10,000 startups can each get $100 million. That's a lot of friggin' money. So now, think about this. We have this transition that's taken place where we're creating more power in a computer chip than was created in the previous 15 years. And we have more money available than we've ever had before in VCs and private equity and dry powder to invest in companies. So this is either a recipe for something amazing or a disaster. Think 2000, remember 2001, the bubble and the crash? We're gonna see that. We're gonna see that soon. That's the one prediction I'll put out there for everybody. But what comes out the other side of it is a set of companies that are going to be so transformative that it's going to change the way we do everything, everything. And the AI that powers, there's lots of different kinds, but we're starting to actually see it. When these are conversations about machine learning taking place in earning calls. And what do I mean in earning? So when CEOs talk to Wall Street, this is the number of times that they mention machine learning or AI. It's starting to go up. So all the companies that are existing are starting to take advantage of it. This is the number of deals that are being done, either acquisitions or investments in AI. So that's starting to rocket. So all this stuff is coming together to do some pretty powerful stuff. And when I talk about AI, I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 different kinds. The first is audio AI. I did this slide in June, 39 million homes. It's actually up to 50 million homes, okay? How many of you have either an Alexa or a Google thing in their home? Most of you do. Alexa testified in her first legal transaction this past year. You realize that. It was actually a witness. She's always listening. Just remember that. She is always listening. And Jeff Bezos is in there with a headset going, yeah. But what's really amazing about Alexa and this audio AI is they don't teach it at some place at Amazon. They don't teach it to the language recognition or at Google. She is learning from every one of you that has this in your house. She is listening to your voice and your commands and learning what's actually the right way to say things or the wrong way to say things, or it doesn't matter how you say things. She's learning how to recognize all this. How many times have you had to ask twice for something? You ask twice. That doesn't happen very often, though. You ask twice, maybe once or twice, but then after that, even when you ask for it with a mumble, she understands it. So we are unwittingly training Alexa with all this vocal audio AI. So we are the trainers now. And so if you think about this, in 50 million homes, how fast this is going to develop. She's already connected to 50,000 different devices that you can command with this. 50,000. You can turn up your heat, you can do whatever you want with your lights. She can command almost everything. And every day they're adding about 1,000 new devices that she's connected to that you'll be able to command with voice. The second kind of AI is the AI that's running robots and cobots. How many of you know what a cobot is? A cobot is the new thing on the factory floor. So we're not going to get rid of all the humans all at once on the factory floor. We're going to put cobots there so they can actually learn from what the humans are doing. The workers are teaching the cobots to work alongside them. Now, what's really cool about the cobots is these machines are really strong. They have really strong muscles, if you will. They've been toned down to only have like 50 pounds of vertical strength so they can't kill you with an elbow, okay? And it can't, so they've toned them down strength-wise, but they're learning from the workers to be able to do more and more things. Again, we are training this AI. The third kind is visual AI. This is hugely relevant to all of you in this room. The big use of visual AI is driverless automobiles and trucks. And this is advancing really fast. And it's happening in a lot, we're doing experiments all over the place. The auto-driving car is actually safer than a regular car already. It's already safer. But they say it's going to take the auto-driving car to be 20 to 50 times safer than a human before humans will trust it. I got news for you. I got a 26-year-old and a 23-year-old. I would love to have an auto-driving car. Because I know it's safer than they are. And I know it's safer than a lot of the things that are out there that are the drivers. But until it gets so safe, we're not going to accept them. But this visual AI is advancing really, really fast as well. Again, all of these cars and trucks that are out there, how many of you have a car that has some of this technology in it? You know, like lane control and things like that? Yeah, so we're getting it. So they're not kind of putting it in there and saying, oh, it's auto driving. They're sneaking it in there, okay? And I'm so sick of my car beeping at me every time I go out of the lane. But it's better, it's a better driver than I am because of this technology. Now, here's an example of where this visual AI is being used outside of cars. How many of you have been to the Amazon Go store? 1, 2, 3, okay. Amazon Go store is totally based on visual AI. What do I mean by that? There are no checkout counters. There are no RFID chips on anything in there. There's cameras in the ceiling and all over the place watching, and the cameras and the AI know what every product is in the store. They recognize every product. They've been trained to know that this is a water bottle, and actually it's a Ice Mountain water bottle, and it sells for $1.09 in their store. The computer has been trained so it knows and it can recognize. So when you walk in the store, you put the stuff in your basket, it's not got a chip in it or measuring it or doing anything like that. The computer is watching you and it knows what's in everybody's basket. You can pull shit out of your basket and put it on the counter. You can kind of try to hide and stick it in your basket. It knows what you put in your basket. And then when you walk out through the checkout, because you have Apple Pay or Amazon, whatever the payment thing is, as you walk out through the checkout, you just walk out the door and it debits your phone, debits your account. No interaction with a human, no need to check it out, but it recognizes everything in that store. This kind of technology that can recognize stuff is going to drive all kinds of change. And here's an example of an old technology before I start the video on this. It's a chip, it's a radar chip. We all think a radar is the gun that gets us tickets. It's a radar chip, so they've shrunk a radar down into a chip, but it wasn't valuable until they could put the AI behind it to be able to understand the signals it was getting. So watch this. And note the sine waves in the back, and I'll talk about that in a second. Touching anything. They are gesturing. And the sensor is reading that gesture and then changing this physical IoT device, whatever it is. This is taking place in Google Labs. This is one of about 15 really cool high-tech experiments that they have going on right now. But what's really cool about this and what's really, really important is that gesture that you're doing with your hand. What are you doing? You're getting something off your thumb, or you're turning a dial? What are you doing? Those people are training it. And so you make the gesture, it creates those sine waves that are in the back, and then they're training not the chip, but the computer to be able to recognize when this wave happens, I'm doing this motion, it causes this wave, that means this. So that's called training, and that's called assisted training because humans are doing that. But think about, we're all talking about IoT, we're gonna have these devices that are gonna be everywhere. Now you're gonna be able to interact with these devices, if they put the chip on it, without even touching it, by just gesturing it. So this means shut up, okay? This means louder, whatever. And it's this combination of this technology with this AI, when you bring them together, gives you powerful new uses that you couldn't have done before. And this is an example of that. So I get to, in my day job at GT Nexus, I get to play hooky quite a bit. They don't tell anybody that. But one of the things I do is Parsons School of Design has got an accelerator called XRC, and I work with them as a coach for some of these startups and helping them get started. And these startups are, 3 women and a dog, or that's the guy. They're just out of Parsons School of Design, or they've been out in the real world for a year. They come back into this accelerator, and they have an idea. And they go through this 16-week course of very intensive, okay, how do you realize that idea? How do you make it into a business? And almost every one of them is using some aspect of this new technology to be able to disrupt an existing business, because that's what they want to do. They don't want to just create a business that's going to do something. They want to disrupt an entire business. And this company, for example, Lexet, they've got a technology using visual AI. You take your phone, you go into your rooms in your house, and you scan the rooms in your house with this phone. And they have taught the machine to recognize every piece of furniture that's out there. So they've downloaded all the websites for all the furniture companies, all the catalogs, all the antiques, all that kind of stuff. And so you can go and scan your room, and now download a little app when you're shopping online that connects to the website that you're shopping. Let's say you're going to Crate and Barrel or you're going to IKEA, and you say, I want a kitchen table, and it'll tell you whether not only that kitchen table will fit in your kitchen, but is it consistent with your style? Because you like arts and crafts, and you like Art Deco, and you like modern. It'll actually tell you if it fits with your style, and then it will call up a whole bunch of other sites and give you 6 other alternatives or 10 other alternatives that also fit, that are probably closer to the style you like, and you wouldn't have found them if you had gone to look yourself, but it's going to scan all those websites, it's going to pull it all together. That is that visual AI, that's being able to recognize objects. Then what's really cool is after you scanned your whole house, you can upload the data to your insurance company, and they have every piece of furniture in your house and the value of it. A little side benefit. Store DNA, also using that visual AI, sort of like Amazon Go. And what it's doing is, the shoe wall in the sporting goods store, that wall that's got all the shoes on it, the sneakers. But it could do it with the whole store, but this is one that's very easy to visualize. Using the cameras that exist in the store, it watches what everybody touches. And then it matches it together real time with the point of sale data from the store. And it says, that piece was touched 7 times and bought once. This one was touched 72 times and bought 8 times. And deducts what stuff is selling the best and where you should locate it in the store based on where people are moving and touching things. So not just on the wall, but anywhere in the store. And they can watch the whole store, they can watch a fleet of stores, and they can tell you where to locate things based on where people are touching them and what they're buying. Vivit, this is a little teeny, it's 3 guys from Italy who came over, then entered into the accelerator. They create a unique identifier for every item. What does that mean? So if you're a wine company, as you're making your bottles of wine, they'll give you a set of identifiers, numbers, that you can put into a QR code that you could put on the bottle of wine. And if nobody does anything, it doesn't matter. But what happens is if somebody in the store scans that QR code, it auto-generates a one-off mini website about that wine by scraping the information from the company and says, here's this bottle of wine, here's when it was made. It's a real bottle of wine from this vineyard, here's the date, here's the provenance of that. And then, if it wasn't a bottle of wine, let's say it was a washing machine, it allows you to press a button and automatically do your registration with the company. So you don't have to fill out any of that registration stuff. And, by the way, now the company's got your address and your registration information and can communicate back and forth with you and ask you what you think about either that bottle of wine or that washing machine and have an interaction with you. Sozi is a kind of an interesting company. This is a woman-run company, and this is, I don't know, at the risk of being politically incorrect. She's a Pakistani woman-run company, and I thought that would be a null set, okay? She is the most dynamic person I've ever met from London. When you go back in time to France at the turn of the century, you didn't try on your own clothes if you went into a store. You had a sosie. What is a sosie? You had a body look-alike. And when you went into a fancy Parisian store, you would say, you're my sosie, can you try this on for me? Think about it. It's less work, and you get to see what it looks like. I can't find anybody that has my body type. Not that I'll admit. But what it allows people to do is go around the world, put in what their body types are, measure whatever, and you can pair up with people around the planet that have your exact body type so that you can shop together, either real time, or you can see what they bought when they come home with pictures and things and decide, I want to get that. So you have a friend in a different city. Now, not Amazon, Facebook tried to do this, but it didn't work because you don't want to buy the same thing as your Facebook friends. But if it's somebody in London or somebody in Paris or somebody in New York that you don't know, having them do shopping and come up with ideas for clothes that you can actually see on a body that looks just like you, this virtual global shopping. Doesn't sound like, it sounds crazy to me, but the groups are getting together on this so that they can shop together. Cherry Pick, this one is a little bit creepy. It does social listening for beauty brands. What does social listening mean? Beauty brands got your email address, and using AI, they can infer what your Twitter handle is, what your Facebook handle is, what your Instagram handle is at like 85% accuracy. They can tell what that is. And then they listen to everything you say. So think about the volume, think about the amount of computer processing. They're listening to everything that you say online, tweeting, Instagramming, Facebooking, and using natural language processing, another AI. They say, I really like that dress that Rihanna was wearing. Ping! 2 seconds later, you get a targeted email with a coupon for that dress or for that beauty product, the lipstick that somebody was wearing. Now, I think that's really creepy. Now, my daughters thought that was really cool. They want to have that. And I asked them, I said, don't you feel like they're spying on you? Yeah, but they're going to give me a service. They're not giving you a service. They're trying to sell you crap. No, it's a service. Well, it is a service because it's giving to you, watching what you're doing, listening to what you're thinking, and what you're interested in, and giving you information about that. The last one is even got a little higher on the creep factor, but it's also pretty cool. It's opt-in selfie loyalty programs. Okay? You walk into, Eric thinks that's really funny. But think about that. Think about that. So you go into the store that uses this program, you're asked, would you like to join our loyalty program? Take a selfie of yourself and text it to this number. They text it to that number. Now the store has your phone and your face. And now every time you walk into any one of their stores, The cameras recognize you, AI, facial recognition, which, by the way, if all the major cities, you're being watched anyways. The facial recognition knows who you are, and it's linked to what you bought, because you're in a loyalty program. Bing! That jacket you bought last week, guy comes up to you in the store, how do you like it? I have these 2 shirts that go exactly with that. Opt-in loyalty based on facial recognition. Now, all of us in this room now, we're not doing that. The results so far have been the first time somebody in these stores, it's a shoe store that did this first, 17% acceptance. Now that's huge even for a loyalty program in general, but a creepy one. 17% of the people opted into it. So, what's the moral of all this? Just when you start to get comfortable with all this technology, don't be, because there's all this money, there's all this new technology that's growing, and there's all these entrepreneurs. The guys at XRC do 2 classes of 10, so twice a year, 20. Target out of Minneapolis, they have a cool program called TechStars. They do about 25 a year. There's about 5 of these in Silicon Valley that are doing like 100 each. And all these companies, 3 guys and a dog, and some really high-powered technology and access to more capital than we have ever seen any time in our entire life, are going to disrupt almost every business out there. And the question is, are you paying attention? Are you going to be disrupted or a disruptor? So, thank you. I could take questions. I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any. I'm also happy to sit down. Yeah, over here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you talked a little bit about, earlier in the presentation, the rate of evolution of some of this technology. So the next 18 months supersede the previous 15 years.
Right.
So the next 18 months will supersede the previous 15. Where do you see regulation, government compliance, all this other, basically, again, that regulation, and how is that going to play a role in this? Because it feels like it's going to far outpace what we can catch up with from a execution standpoint.
I promised I wouldn't talk about politics, so no, just kidding. You're absolutely right. And I believe what's going to happen is what's happening right now, which is the change is going to happen way faster than regulation can keep up with it. And then regulation is going to fix the problems that happen, but it's going to be very lumpy. It's going to be very disruptive. Because the government isn't watching any of this. Because if they try to preempt any of it, they're going to stop innovation. If they don't do that, then there's going to be this innovation that's going to be really disruptive. And you're going to get very different things. Like, so for example, you're even seeing it with like the driverless cars, how certain towns, certain states, certain cities are regulating it differently, and all kinds of other rules. This is not tech, but like the cannabis stuff. We have places like Colorado that are saying yes, and Washington, D.C., where it says yes. They all need to get high down there. But certain towns are already preempting and saying, you can't do that in our town, even if it's not legal because we don't like the smell of it or whatever. And the same thing is going to happen with each one of these technologies. The technology is going to advance really quickly, and if it causes a problem, it'll get regulated. If it doesn't, it'll just go on. And I don't see the government's getting in front of any of this. And okay, but I will say there's a couple of things. How many of you are familiar with GDPR? Okay, good. Everybody should be. It's the regulation that starts in Europe about privacy. That kind of, I see Europe actually being more of a leader on those kinds of things, like the privacy. They're going to affect this stuff. And the US will be followers on that. If you take a look at most of those kind of regulations, some of that stuff comes first from Europe. Is that, I wish
Yeah,
I had a good answer that said that the governments are going to be able to really control all this, but they're not.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone has a good answer to that. I think about, you touched on sort of autonomous vehicles or automated vehicles, and I think about that forefront of my mind. The technology is going to outpace what we are able to do in the industry, I think. And I was just wondering.
Yeah, the autonomous vehicles are a perfect example. They're already safer than human drivers. So we're going to see them do things like, and I'm not an expert on autonomous driving, but I can see them doing things like long straight parts of roads for long haul trucking, where they'll have, an autonomous vehicle that'll pick up something, take it down that straight road, like I-90 across Pennsylvania or whatever, and take it and meet on the other end. I can see things like that starting, and certain states saying, well, we want it. But then there's the whole job side of it. Other people saying, we don't want this because it's going to eliminate jobs. But all those of us in the industry know there isn't enough drivers now anyway, so having an autonomous driver would be a good thing. But it's gonna be crazy. And
he's got a great question, and I don't want to say that you didn't answer it, because I think you did. But for example, my wife's a surgeon, and she uses the Da Vinci robot to operate on people. She's really good at this one procedure. And she could operate on anybody in any part of the country, but she can't. She can only be 10 feet away from the patient, because regulation prevents her. The technology's there, but she can't actually do the procedure. And at one point a couple years ago, I spent a lot of work with drones, and drones are completely being held back by regulation. Autonomous driving is another one. I still see your question as being a great one, because I still feel like regulation is outpacing some of the things that some of the guys in here are doing.
yeah, and maybe because most of the examples that I'm talking about are in retail and those kinds of things where there isn't a lot of regulation. But you're right. I have a drone. I have to register it now, all that kind of stuff, and I can't even use it in my backyard. It's that kind of stuff. And if that happens, it's going to slow it down. Like your wife is doing these specialized surgeries. She could be doing them in Africa, right? If the equipment was there, and she could do it remotely. And I think in the case of medical, that's already a highly regulated industry, right? That has a lot of rules and regulations about what you can do. I don't know. I wish I had a good answer for you about it. I think there's going to be a lot of collisions of things running into each other. And I don't mean autonomous vehicles. I mean of rules and regulations.
Yeah, thanks. In terms of corporate disruption, we've heard a lot about big brands going down because they didn't see the change coming. That's accelerated over time, and innovation is accelerating. It's getting broader. There's more disruption to come. There's so much upheaval. What are the segments that you see that are getting it and moving forward, and who's not getting it and really getting left behind maybe as a vertical or even geographically? I don't know. Where's it happening and where are people just not getting it?
Well, I think that geographically the U.S. is leading a lot of that. Silicon Valley and the big cities in the U.S. are leading it from what's happening. It's happening in every industry, and you're seeing it even in big companies like General Electric. General Electric was here for how many years? Okay. And Jack Welch was our business corporate hero for 20 years, right? Atomic Jack, okay? And all of a sudden now, completely disrupted with all these other people coming in, these other incumbents. I don't think there's any one group that's getting it. I think it's happening everywhere, and in every one of the groups, there's leaders that are leading it. Certainly in retail, Amazon is the one that's disrupting everybody, But from my perspective, the Amazon effect is not the effect that I would worry about. What I worry about is these little companies that are coming from the side that are going to do it. And they're like, if you take survival class, they tell you it's not the lions and tigers that kill you, it's the mosquitoes. And it's the same thing with Amazon. Everybody's watching them. They know what they're going to do. And I don't know, have any of you been to Amazon's headquarters? First of all, is there anybody here from Amazon? No. Yes. Okay. These guys they're amazing. But they're also really weird. So we're doing some work there. We can't talk about what we're doing. I get into the conference room there, and we're going to set up a call-in so people can call in from different offices to talk about the project. And I'm like looking for WebEx or anything. And they say, no, we have our own proprietary phone system. They have their own proprietary phone system and their own proprietary hardware in their offices. And I think it's paranoia. Okay, right? Okay, he admits it. But they're pretty amazing about the change that they're going through. But everybody's watching them very closely, what they're doing. And it's these mosquitoes that are coming at it from the side that are actually going to disrupt more people because nobody's paying attention to them.
Just to follow up on the second part is, if all the giants are getting disrupted, how much can the market bear? Is there some point where the market gets a little bit dysfunctional because all the big ones are going down and these little companies are knocking them out?
There's over $1 trillion of venture capital and private equity that's available to restart all this stuff. And we've been through this before, people. It happened with the Industrial Revolution. Now, everybody says, oh, we got through that, it'll be okay. It's going to be really disruptive and really painful. And it was really disruptive and really painful when we took 90% of the population that lived in the country and were farmers and moved them all to the cities like Chicago and Pittsburgh and everywhere, and turned them into metal bangers because that's what it was. It was hugely disruptive. But it was incredible. It created an incredible amount of capital and wealth and change. We're going to go through that exact same thing over the next 10 years. It's going to be very disruptive. So you have a couple of choices. You can either learn this stuff and get on the train, and look at like Project 44. Look what Jet and his team are doing. They're thinking differently about stuff. They're going to change it. And I'd like to say that they're going to be the big winners, but I don't know. They're going to be a winner. But it's going to be incredibly disruptive to the industry, and we're going to see that. So you have a choice. You can either get on it, you can ride it, or you can just retire. That's just also a possibility. But it is going to be disruptive and painful. I don't think it's going to be all roses, because there's going to be a lot, with these kinds of things, there's a lot more losers than there are winners. And if you think about just Amazon, think about what a winner they are. And I have my brother-in-law in Pittsburgh whose business was disrupted by Amazon. You know what he does now? He works in an Amazon warehouse for 1/3 the money. Okay? And happy to have the job, by the way. So thank you. Don't take it wrong. So, but it's disruptive, but it's opportunities. And so I think you need to either pull the shorts on and go for it or retire. So, any more? Did I depress you all bad enough? Okay. Well, thank you all, and tighten up those shorts and go for it.